Coming up on show 826, clean energy takes the win as Tesla's market share overtakes the fossil companies. Stick around, I'll tell you more. Plus, on the podcast today, how do you feel about unlimited EV charging for a flat fee? Ford Mustang's Mach-E comes with some attractive financing deals, BMW planning a pilot battery plant, and the Audi Q4 E-Tron is basically the ID4 from VW in Audi clothing. Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to EV News Daily. Here's what happened on Wednesday, 1st of July. My name is Martyn Lee, and I go through every EV story so you don't have to. We'll start off with this story that I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, and that's all about how you feel about unlimited charging plans. Not something that I've come across. I've come across subscription plans where, in the UK we have something called the Polar Plus subscription with BP ChargeMaster. Gives me access to certain chargers. Some of them are free, some of them are discounted rates. But what about a flat fee for all you can eat? Well, EVPassport, a new electric vehicle charging app, promises to deliver unlimited EV charging on a variety of different networks. How much will it cost you? Well, $39 a month is the price. What you do is you download the EVPassport app. Now, when you've done that, EV drivers will have access to DC fast chargers across the US. Which ones does it include? They think they've covered off the big ones. So they've done deals with Electrify America, EVgo, ChargePoint and Greenlots, says Tom Moloughney for IndideEVS. He says that in addition to the flat fee, EVPassport offers the convenience of interoperability. It really is the dream, which any non-Tesla owner really wants, actually. Just turning up to any charger, ideally just plugging in your car, but even if you have to do something, in other words, not having to have all these different cards and apps on your phone and in your glove box, with EVPassport you don't. There's no need to join any of these networks directly. Now that requires an app or an RFID card in your wallet or on your keychain. The EVPassport app will be available this summer. However, if you want to join the waiting list now, you can sign up if you want to. EVPassport is compatible with all Electrify America stations and the vast majority of EVgo. Now, some of the old ChargePoint stations, only about 50% works with the newer ones, and same with Greenlots as well. They've got to be recently installed. The problem with many of those ChargePoint and Greenlots ones is because some of the really old hardware, whilst they were early with some hardware, they're not compatible with the modern technology that's required to make EVPassport work. Well, EVPassport aims to simplify EV charging by introducing a concept which is really clever. And I think we should try and get towards this as much as we can, and it's called minutes to charge. Now, I was talking to and I won't say who it was or why, but I happened to be having a conversation via Zoom earlier this week with the CEO of a charging company. And I was talking to him about the language around charging, particularly what we at the moment call chargers, like rapids and ultra fast and slow and medium rare. I mean, I don't know what all these things mean sometimes, and I make a daily podcast about EVs, but what is the official speed of a fast charger or a rapid or an ultra rapid? Honestly, I don't know the definitive answer. And I was talking to him, and he agreed. And it was his suggestion. I was just presenting the problem like an idiot, going, I hate the language around charging. And, obviously he runs a charging company, and so he had an answer prepared because he spends a lot of time thinking about this stuff. And he said, let's get away. He wants to get away from all of these terms, and why not just say how far you can travel after so many minutes, because the charging companies know a lot about the car that you drive. And so EVPassport over in the US, coincidentally, are doing the same thing. They want to introduce minutes to charge as a concept that we all use. Instead of the app showing how many kilowatts the DC fast charger or high-powered charger can deliver, let's get away from kilowatts, or even what the cost per minute is. Instead, EVPassport will display how many minutes you need to charge based on your car. So obviously the charger can recognize the car. Obviously you can program that into the app. And even with state of charge, it'll know the typical charging curve as well. And so we can get quite clever about these things in the future as, non-geeks start buying EVs. So EVPassport isn't available for ride sharing. So if you use Lyft, or if you work for Lyft or Uber, they won't let you use it. Personal use only, not for commercial use. And there's going to be like a soft cap So it limits how much any individual can spend per month, but that's really only there in the T's and C's to stop abuse. It is otherwise unlimited. The details are being refined at the moment, but it's $39 a month, and it's unlimited. So some months you might use 20, and some months you might do more road trips and use 100. But they think over the course of a year, by the time it all evens out, they will be charging a slight surplus over what you would have paid to run their business, obviously to pay their team, and for the convenience of it as well. Interesting. I love anything unlimited. I love frictionless. I love easy. And I hope that this takes off. And yeah, I mean, I hope it comes to the UK as well. There's a company over here that have an app that a lot of people use to find charging stations. They're called ZapMap, and ZapMap are doing something, they want to do something similar. I think it's called ZapCharge or ZapPay or something. Basically, maybe not unlimited, but it'll integrate with your life and you just pay them and they look after everything else. So fingers crossed. You know what? It'd be really cool to get the team from EVPassport on doing a Saturday special, and I can ask some questions about it as well, and maybe you can put some questions in. Let me contact them and see how they feel about coming on the podcast and being interrogated. Let's talk next about the Audi E-Tron S. Now, the new 496 brake horsepower Audi E-Tron S just got revealed, and wow. Pinch punch, first of the month. What a gorgeous car. 3 motors for an EV flagship version, the Audi E-Tron S. And this isn't even the RS, so this is the S. And we know that Audi like to do high-performance versions. And we know that the Audi EV quite heavy, at about 2.5 tons. But they are making up for that with more motors. 3 motors, 1 motor on the front axle, says Evo magazine, and 2 on the smaller motors on the rear. The motors themselves are a wholesale application from the current e-tron 55 and 50 middle, but they're swapped around. So the larger unit is the single on the front, and the smaller motor is the 2 on the rear. 496 brake horsepower with this, and that is a boost figure, so it's not available permanently, but you can still nail the throttle for 8 seconds and get the absolute maximum power out of the car. And so whether you want to hit the track or maybe just do some drag runs or the traffic light Grand Prix or whatever, then this looks like it's going to be a more high-performance Audi, and possibly for you as well. Okay, so the Audi E-Tron S and the Audi E-Tron S Sportback are the 2 that they are going to apply it to, and they are going to be plus minus 100,000, like £90,000, $105,000. Another advantage of having 2 rear motors is you can do some torque applications and some clever stuff with software, and so you haven't got to worry about diffs and drive shafts and all those kind of things. You can do torque vectoring with instantaneous control, and I'll pop a link to in the show notes to Evo if you want to see some pictures and read more. Of course, they haven't changed anything else like the battery pack. That's still 95 kilowatt hours gross, about 91 usable on the e-tron, or is it 89? I don't know, the old brain is fading. Either way, about 225 miles or so real world on the e-tron. Got some big wheels, 22 inches, 21's a standard, but you can get some 22-inch wheels as well. Recalibrated air suspension, new steering rack going into this as well. The air suspension means you can vary the ride height, and you know that when Audi stick an S on the front of the grille, it's gonna be good. I really love the look of the Audi E-Tron S Sportback. That, of course, is the one with the swoopy hatchback rear to it. You know, I'd love a really practical EV estate for sensible reasons, but this is not as practical. But man, it looks gorgeous. If I had £90,000 burning a hole in my pocket, I absolutely would put this one on my shopping lists. But then when you get up to that kind of territory, you'd start thinking, well, do I want an SUV or do I want a Porsche Taycan? No, decisions that I won't be making anytime soon. Let's talk about the Ford Mustang. The finance deals are out. The order books opened 2 days ago on Monday, and now we're looking at some of the finance deals that you can get on the Mustang. That already wheeling out an 84-month finance deal. That's huge, isn't it? But it's not actually the best value, if you like. If you do want 7-year financing, you'll be paying 5.9%, 3.9% APR on the 72-month deal. If you go for the 4-year deal, 0.9% APR. And that's a little more sensible. Over 4 years, less than 1% APR, that's about $830 worth of interest on a $45,000 car. And usual disclaimer, usual caveating, I don't like finance on cars because cars go down in value, and if you can't afford a car and it's going to be a stretch, you shouldn't do it. I know, I'm a boring voice of reason, but I do these kind of stories because I'm fully aware that over 9 out of every 10 cars are sold on finance, and so I do it reluctantly. And I lowered, rather than having a lovely car in the driveway and financing up to the eyeballs, I just have a more modest car in the driveway and sleep really well at night, knowing that if the job turned to mush or all those kind of things, we don't get left in the shtuck. All right, let's talk about Tesla's market value overtaking Exxon. Lead story today. An energy paradigm shift is how Clean Technica described this. According to Bloomberg, Tesla's market value just surpassed ExxonMobil, in a sign that investors are increasingly betting on a global energy transition away from fossil fuels. Bloomberg touted the turning point as a symbolic energy shift, and I couldn't agree more. Okay, it's worth bearing in mind that not only has Tesla grown, really, in the last... so it had a spike in Jan-Feb, then it went down, and now it's back up to new all-time highs. But really, it had a pretty consistent 2017, 18, 19, where Tesla was floating around 50 billion and ExxonMobil was around 350 billion. So, okay, people have lost the desire to invest as much in Exxon, so that has absolutely collapsed. But equally, Tesla's grown. Still, it's a symbolic move, and it's just great that, this isn't really a Tesla story. This is a clean energy story. This is an EV story. It's a story about how the former giants of the fossil fuel space are being overlooked now by a clean energy company, which arguably Tesla is. More than a car company, more than a software company, it's an energy company. More concerned with how we go about our day-to-day lives, whether that is our mobility or powering our homes, whether that is generating it or storing it. Ultimately, in 10 years' time, Tesla won't be about making cars. Tesla will be about powering the planet. And that's a much bigger prize than cars. All right, let's move on. Tesla is the car that is owned by Bjorn Nyland, who is the Norwegian YouTuber, who I like because he's super nerdy. And not everyone's cup of tea, I understand that. However, he has got himself a Honda E on test at the minute. Now, he does own a Model 3, and the Honda E, I knew it had a plug socket inside it, but I didn't realise how much power the inverter is. Like you got your USB sockets inside a typical car, or the cigarette lighter 12 volt. I knew the Honda E had a plug socket in, but actually the plug socket in the Honda E can deliver 1.5 kilowatts, which is mega. I mean, it's just enormous. I don't know what the average is for a car to pull, but it's a fraction of that. So anyway, it's got its own fuse. He calls it a Shuko, and now we don't have that here. We have 3-pin plugs. But either way, I suppose the Honda E's that are sold in this country will be the 3-pin. I guess in Europe it'll be the 2-pin. And 1.5 kilowatts, like I say, is mega. So what did Bjorn think? I wonder if I can charge my Model 3 from the Honda E. And he did. So he plugged a regular plug socket, household plug socket, your typical wall box plug socket, into the Honda E inside. It sort of lives below the dashboard. So he plugged it in, trailed a cable out of the door, and plugged it into his Model 3. He capped it at 6 amps so that it wouldn't. It's a 7 amp fuse on the Honda, and so he didn't want to blow it. So he was pulling 1.4 kilowatts. Go and watch the video. It's brilliant. If only for proof of concept. Now, I suppose you could use this in an emergency. Or you could, as he does, take his microwave on a road trip. He does a road trip in the Honda, and rather than have a little microwave, a little noodle meal that he has, he takes a flask of hot water often and does some noodles. He just takes the microwave from his kitchen in the car, plugs it in, and does a ready meal, which is brilliant. Go and watch the video, very funny, and I didn't realise the Honda E had such a high-powered inverter. What would you do if you could genuinely have a high level of power draw from if you had the Honda E? I mean, that is some charging for all of your devices, running laptops and, you know, computers. You know, you could run tools off of that. You could go camping and have some genuine heating coming off of the Honda E's battery, which isn't the biggest, though. The Honda E does have a pretty small 35.5 kilowatt-hour battery and 125 miles of range, but we know that it's all about how the car looks and drives rather than how far it goes. All right, let's get on. We have got, once again, I should mention, 10 amazing EV stories, 10 of the best for the first day of the month. According to a number of German media reports, BMW is planning a pilot plant for its production of battery cells for electric cars. Not just Tesla that are getting into cell production, BMW doing the same thing, says Electrify. Back in November last year, BMW opened a cell competence centre in Munich, but BMW now wants to make their battery cells more developed and manufactured on scale, and the plant that they're opening now appears to be the next step in BMW's battery cell technology, designed in such a way to allow expansion and production on the site as well. A 40,000 metre square hall in the factory area. Fantastic, good news there. The Audi Q4 e-tron, the Audi Q4 is their version of the VW ID4, and more pictures once again today coming out of this little beauty being spotted on the roads. It is the equivalent of the ID4, which is the next one coming after the ID3. It's the first one that will be going to the US as well, and we've seen the Audi Q4 testing before, actually with an ID4 body on it, but now it's got its proper body, still covered in camouflage, so it's really hard to get a proper look at this. But we do know that it'll have something like 300 horsepower, you know, plus minus about that. A top speed of that platform is pegged at 112 miles an hour. The biggest battery, I think, in the Q4, even though the platform can take big batteries, I think that'll come with an 82 kilowatt hour battery pack. Charges at about 125 kilowatts. Not the best, but actually probably all that most people need given the infrastructure today and in the near future. 280 miles on a single charge, and if you love the Audi badge on the front and you love the styling of the Q4, this could well be a car for you when it reaches showrooms in 2021. Let's have a look at a story I found in Auto Express today. I like Auto Express, actually. I follow the guys, a lot of the guys who work there on Twitter. They're very pro-EV and very balanced, actually. And now they're reporting today on the new Suzuki Across. And if you see a picture of the Suzuki Across and think, that looks a lot like the Toyota RAV4 Prime that Martin talked about on the EV News Daily podcast recently, it's because it's the same car. I won't be mean and say it's simply a badge-engineered car, and simply swapping badge for badge. They have put a new grille on the front, I suppose, but otherwise it's the RAV4 Prime. Now I wonder why Toyota aren't bringing the RAV4 Prime to the UK. It's a really compelling plug-in car. 18.1 kilowatt hour battery, 16 kilowatt hours usable. That's like 40 miles of range on electric power. Pretty much all you need. Pretty much doing most of your journeys on electric power. Four-wheel drive, so it's got two motors, great for cold climates. But we know, and we've seen in the past, I've tweeted it plenty of times in the past, that ad campaign that Toyota run in this country and have run in the past, which says, we choose not to plug in. I mean, in the UK, I don't know if they've updated that since, but the last I saw, Toyota were not just choosing not to sell plug-in cars in the UK, they were going out of their way to be the anti-EV company, to portray EVs as that that you got to wait ages and covered in cobwebs, chargers, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, so their Twitter campaign, we choose not to plug in. It would be rather awkward to then try and sell a plug-in car. So we know Toyota in the UK are just not going to sell a plug-in car here. It doesn't suit them yet, and they'll do all they can to actually probably hurt perception of the EV industry with those kind of attack ads, which again, you know, it makes me sad. I like Toyota as a company. I think the marketing people need firing, but as a company, they make good stuff, right? So actually, the RAV4 Prime would have been good here, but they're going to market it as the Suzuki Across. 2.5 litre, 4-cylinder petrol engine. Wouldn't be for me, but I think it'd be for a lot of people, actually. Good tech, good space, good pricing as well, because Suzuki sell on price, don't they? And so late 20s, late 20-something, early 30s, possibly get some nice options on that. If they can make enough of them, it'll sell well. But of course, we did tell you the story recently that they've sold out in their home market. Toyota have home market of Japan, 300 a month. And then they're surprised that they've had to stop taking orders. They don't want to sell plug-in cars. If they did, they're such a big company. They can't use the BS excuse of, oh, we couldn't get the batteries. I mean, not that they have, but there's no excuse. They're Toyota, biggest car company in the world. Until recently. And by market share. And market capitalization, rather. And it's frustrating. If they wanted to, they could make great plug-in cars. They don't want you to buy one. They don't want you to buy one. But anyway, so maybe in this country they'll make a few more Suzukis than in America and Japan. The RAV4 Prime. All right, let's move on and talk about the Hyundai Santa Fe. It's coming to Europe. It's a plug-in hybrid, 265 brake horsepower, and Hyundai expanding their electric range. It's a plug-in car. The Santa Fe is a bigger car than what they offer at the moment. 1.6 litre. Turbocharged petrol unit. I think it's a step up from the Kona, isn't it? It's a bigger SUV. 44 kilowatt motor is going to go into this, so that's okay. 13.8 kilowatt hour battery, smaller than the Toyota / Suzuki that we were just talking about, and still four-wheel drive because they put the motor on the rear wheels, and so very good, very compelling for a certain audience. And they're also going to offer a new version of their 2.2 litre diesel engine in that, coming by the end of the year if you want a plug-in Santa Fe. Final story today. How about electric fire engines? Okay, plug-in fire engines. Volvo Penta, which is a separate company than Volvo, not the one that makes the cars. Volvo Penta has an electric driveline for fire service vehicles, enabling a solution with zero emissions and reduced noise levels. The vehicle is undergoing intensive testing and will begin real-world customer testing with the fire departments of Berlin, Amsterdam and Dubai very, very soon, says the website greencarcongress.com. The electric driveline for the platform is something that they have been developing and industrializing for a while, and by walking away from conventional commercial vehicle concepts and doing an electric solution for trucks, Volvo Penta say that they have all the benefits of a zero emission system that you need if you are going to be trying to achieve those goals in all of the different vehicles that are on the road. Also, they say excellent functionality. I don't know the battery size in this, and I thought this was a plug-in hybrid, but I need to actually confirm that, because each axle of the truck, they say, is powered by an electric motor, and the electric-powered journey with ample time for operation once you get to the rescue site. Now, in this, there is a backup diesel engine in case the journey or even the operation, the fire, takes longer to put out than expected. But I need to confirm, is that diesel engine a REC? Is it a range extender, like a generator, or is it like a hybrid engine? But either way, like you can imagine a fire engine is so heavy when it's fully loaded. If if it is going out to a call or a shout at a fire full of water, then electric power is going to get it up to speed and doing its job safely as quick as possible. But I love all these little vehicles that are now being electrified. It's a sign that EVs are coming of age. Well, there you go. 10 of the best on another podcast and another brilliant, positive day of EV news. If you want to email me anytime, you can. The address is hello@evnewsdaily.com. Please leave a comment on the YouTube show. There are 825 shows in the archive, and that is indeed paid for by Patreon supporters. First of the month, people are being billed. If you're a Patreon supporter of this show, a reminder, you'll get your little email that comes out, and thank you once again for another month of your continued support. My premium partners are Phil Roberts of Electric Future, Brad Crosby, thank you Brad, Avid Technology, big engineering company here in the UK, making the bits in EVs that you might not even realise are in them. The kind of the power behind the power, if you like, Avid Technology. A Brightsmith Group, sort out your clean tech talent. Porsche of the Village in Cincinnati, Audi of Cincinnati East, and Volvo Cars of Cincinnati East. And now, nationalcarcharging.com and allohacharge.com. Have a wonderful day. I'll catch you tomorrow, and remember, there's no such thing as a self-charging hybrid.